So we'll light this bonfire. So now we're going to pause it to look at stats. Just like previous Souls series, players can exchange their souls for leveling up character stats. Any stat can be increased to a level of 99, just like in Dark Souls. So the maximum level was around 777 or something like that. And unlike in previous Souls titles, increasing your level will no longer increase your resistances. So now resistances are actually an important stat. And this is to encourage players to actually use the resistance stat every now and again. So no longer is resistance useless, it's actually useful now. It's no longer useless, as it was in Dark Souls. Attunement in Dark Souls 2 seems to work differently than Attunement in Dark Souls. It provides you with magic slots like before, but also increases casting speed rather than dexterity. So you'll be able to cast faster. It's going to be interesting. So in Dark Souls 2 there are more stats, and they seem to be split up now, because endurance is now just for stamina, whereas before it was for stamina, max equipment load and resistance to bleeding, but they've changed that to just stamina. And vitality is now equipment load. So Vigor before was actually called vitality, which governed the player's maximum health points. Now it's Vigor, and it still determines your hit points. Stats that no longer exist are Humanity from Dark Souls, which increased curse resistance and item discovery, as well as attack power for weapons that scale with Humanity. So that is gone, and resistances are changed, because now you actually need to spend points in resistance if you want to boost your resistances, instead of spending points in endurance and just leveling up. And you can see the first symbol is health, and that's always been there, just it's actually called Vigor. So with these stats you only get little pictures, you don't actually get a description as far as I know. You should get a description if you press triangle, as you do on the weapons. I don't know why they don't add that. There's a lot of cryptic stuff in these games that's not explained, like PvP is not explained. You have to figure it out for yourself, although you could just look it up on the Dark Souls wiki basically, which is what I did, and it has a list for everything that you want to know about the game. So if you're confused about the game, that's what the internet's for anyway. Just go on the internet and type in whatever you're confused about, and it'll come up in the search. Google is your friend. So we have wiki information on stats, and the first stat is Vigor. The icon is a heart. The affected stat is HP. The affected stat icon is red, the red health bar, and it's an attribute that determines HP. Well, no shit. It affects your maximum HP and diminishes as you die. So that basically means the longer you stay hollow, the further down your health bar will cap out. So it can go right down to 50% of your maximum HP. So that's basically if you use a potion, if you use an Estus flask, if you use a life gem, you can't get past 50% health if you've been hollow for too long. So this game, as I said before, you have to become human. Yeah, it's the human effigy, so you really need to use these human effigies, which they seem to be replacing the humanity sprites from Dark Souls. It is believed they'll be used to aid in becoming more human, to allow the player to be at full health, summon and fight with other players. So if you don't use those and you just stay hollow, your health will be capped at 50% all the time. You won't be able to get above 50%, which is a big chunk of your health. If you level up, that's even more of your health. Every time you level up, that's more of your health. If you level your Vigor, that's your HP bar going up. But then it's like half of 100% is 50%, but then you increase that. If that 100% is only say 90 health, then half of that is 45. But if you have 200 health, half of that is 100 health then, and that's a big difference. So basically you're going to have to use these human effigies, and this is going to mean you're going to get invaded more. You're going to be playing co-op with other players more. You're probably going to have to summon people just to protect you from invaders. But like, I wouldn't play on my own in human form without other people now, because I'd be afraid of being invaded by multiple people and then having to fight a boss on my own. I actually found quite difficult, because the first boss is split up into 3 characters and adds, so it'll be a lot easier with summoned players. So I think co-op is going to be a bit more intuitive, a bit more necessary in Dark Souls 2 than it was in the previous game. Like in the previous game I played pretty much 100% solo. I didn't summon anybody at all. I fought on my own. I was invaded a few times, I defeated a few people on my own, and then one guy defeated me. But where I could avoid it, I didn't turn human. I did tend to fully enkindle flames by reversing hollowing and kindling it 3 times, I think it is, yeah, to get it to 20 Estus Flask. And then what you could do is just warp back to that bonfire that was fully enkindled, so you didn't have to do that again. And after you became human, you could just kill yourself so you didn't get invaded, so you could just pretty much stay hollow. Some people say it affected your stats, but I didn't really notice such a difference. But in this game you'll definitely notice a difference if you stay hollow. 50% of your health bar is insane. That's a huge deficit to work with, so you definitely want to use your human effigies and become human again. If you get down to 50% health, you'll have to do that. So you'll have to use them sparingly and wisely, probably, because I didn't see that many drop actually. I only saw 1 drop. I started off with 2 and I had 3 overall. So I think I found 1 or 2 of them, so they're not that common to drop. Okay, the second stat is endurance. It's the 2 legs, and it affects stamina, and it's indicated by a green icon on your, well, the green icon under the health bar is your stamina bar, and it determines your overall stamina. But there's a new mechanic with this, stun, and once your stamina bar is fully depleted, if you're hit, you will enter a state of stun or dizziness. During this time you cannot do anything, but other players can perform a finisher move similar to a counter attack. So it's going to be like Mortal Kombat, finish him. And he's going into this dizzied state. That's actually what they did in Mortal Kombat. They went into a dizzied state when their health was at 0, and then you could perform a finisher within 10 seconds, or else they just drop down. Similar to a counter attack, so it's going to be interesting. I didn't actually get to see that because multiplayer wasn't available, so much for that. I don't know how finishers work either. I haven't seen them performed. It's going to be very interesting, kind of like Skyrim, I guess, where you could perform finishers on enemies and enemies could perform finishers on you. I wonder if that worked the same when your stamina bar was fully drained and they stunned you. Would they get a finisher on you? Because I had that happen to me quite a lot, but I was playing on the master difficulty at that time. Okay, the third stat is vitality, and it's indicated by like a breastplate icon or a chest. It's basically a torso of it's kind of hard to make out these icons. They're very vague, and it's kind of disappointing. You can't, when you hover over them, it should tell you what the stat is and what it does, but unfortunately you have to go to other websites to find this out, as far as I know. So the third stat is vitality. It determines equipment load. The affected stat is equipment load, and it's an attribute that determines your maximum equipment load. The fourth stat is Attunement. The icon is a scroll, and the affected stat is spell attunement slot as before, but also spell casting speed. It's an attribute that governs the number of spells that can be attuned, but it also boosts spell casting speed. You can now see the spell casting stat, allowing you to plan accordingly, is the note. And strength seems to be a little bit underpowered at the minute, which is the 5th stat. The 5th stat is strength, and the icon for that is a flexing arm. And the affected stat is physical strength based attack power. Basically the attribute required to wield heavy power weapons and also boost weapon attack. Apparently strength right now seems a little bit underpowered compared to dexterity, which is very powerful. It's possible that the damage output of strength based weapons will be higher to compensate for this. And the 6th stat is dexterity. The icon for that is a hand. And the affected stats are physical dexterity based attack power, poison attack power, and bleed attack power. So it's an attribute required to wield weapons requiring finesse. It boosts poison and bleed effects. Now that is a very, very intriguing boost, because if you had a lot of dexterity and you got a bleed or a poison weapon, that would be highly, highly effective and highly powerful. So I have a feeling that might get nerfed. So dexterity based weapons do not have an innate poison or bleed effect, but if you find such a weapon, dexterity will increase their proficiency. And that was not in the game before, so it's going to be interesting to see how that works. If we get a poison and bleed weapon, or just poison and bleed weapons, and then you'll want to be using those if you're a dexterity build, especially if you have a dexterity weapon with bleed or poison on it. It's going to be really powerful, scaling with your dexterity. So if you had, say, 40 dexterity, it would scale up to much higher damage than if you had 0, or whatever baseline dexterity is, about 11. So you do a lot more damage with your, let's say, dexterity weapon of poison, like a dagger with poison damage on it. Say baseline it did 100 damage, and with 40 dexterity boost it did, like, say, 150 damage. That's a big boost compared to strength, which just increases weapon attack baseline. It just boosts physical strength based attack power. So I think they actually need to address that and give something else to strength, because that's just not enough for strength. I like playing a strength build, but that's not going to be enough. Dexterity is going to be seriously overpowered compared to a strength build. Then we come to resistance, which is the 7th stat, and it is, I can't even make out what that is. It looks like 2 vases crossed, or bowling pins. It's hard to make these icons out. Obviously you can make out a hand and a flexing arm and a chest and the heart and the legs. Well, most of them you can make out, but this one I can't make out. So resistance is actually needed this time. It boosts physical defense, poison defense, and bleed defense. So it's an attribute governing defense. It boosts poison and bleed resistances. And it seems like now a legitimate concern for building up your character. No longer will it be determined by level. So your resistances don't go up when you level up automatically, unless you choose resistance. And they don't go up with endurance either, as it did in the previous game. So endurance in the previous game increased your resistance to bleeding as well as equipment load and stamina. But in Dark Souls 2 it's only stamina for endurance. And if you want bleed defense, you need to spend points in resistance. I wonder if, does poison resistance, that does include the toxic effect, doesn't it? Because I remember that toxic effect was horrible in Blighttown. If you got shot with a toxic dart and you weren't really high level, it would drain your health really fast. So we're going to need that. Unless we get like a suit of poison resistance armor, which was really good, like the black armor, which was pretty good for that. I can't remember the exact name. It's black something, leather armor or something. It had pretty high poison resistance. And the 8th stat is agility, which is a new stat, a totally new stat, and it's got the icon is a man running, And the affected stats for that are evasion, attack speed, and trap disabling, which is a new feature also. It's an attribute governing swiftness of movement. It boosts speed of evasion, blocking, and other actions. So it's a totally new stat. Action speed affects, for example, the speed up to your shield. I don't know what that means, but swiftness of movement is obviously running. So how fast you move, how fast you roll. Might even be how fast you attack, but don't quote me on that. I'm not sure. I didn't try it out. So I'd like to try that out. An agility and dexterity build. That would be like a fast rogue, even though rogue seems to be missing from the classes at the minute. Yeah, dual swordsman would be the closest to that, or hunter. I haven't seen a thief or a bandit yet. So that's kind of odd, since they added agility and they have dexterity still. And dexterity has been basically buffed quite considerably. So it's weird they would remove a bandit and thief. Trap disabling doesn't seem to have a mini game. Rather a % chance of opening a chest without triggering the trap, so it's automatically it automatically scales. So basically, if you had a 10% chance of not triggering a trap baseline, or 0% chance, then with every point you'd get another % chance to open a chest without triggering the trap. So there's no mini game like a lockpick in Skyrim or trap disabling. Then the 9th attribute is intelligence. The icon for intelligence seems to be a skull. The affected stats are magic attack power, fire attack power, magic defense, and fire defense. So if you want fire defense or magic defense, you have to spend points on intelligence. Same for magic attack and fire attack. So we split that up. It's an attribute required for sorceries and other spells. Boosts proficiency in magic and fire, attack and defense. Pyromancy and spells are once again paired together a la Demon Souls. The in-game story indicates why. I was never one for using spells in these games, but they are quite very useful actually. Especially healing and the knockback spells. I must try those out. And then we've got Faith finally at number 10, indicated by a star. The affected stats are lightning attack power, dark attack power, lightning defense, and dark defense. I haven't heard of dark defense or attack. Is that like curses? I haven't seen curses in this, or curses even mentioned. Maybe they've got rid of curses because they were a bit of a pain in the ass. Once you got cursed, your health was slightly reduced, well, by about a quarter. And you could attack ghosts, but to get rid of it, you needed a purging stone. So it was a bit too complex. So Faith is an attribute required for miracles and other spells. Boosts proficiency in lightning and dark attack and defense. In Dark Souls, Faith governed the miracle power and increased magic defense. Miracles were like healing, so it seems they've got rid of that. Or is healing going to scale with something now? I'm not sure. Magic, obviously, magic attack probably. So that's it for the stats.